Hi everyone, get ready because this video is going to be unlike every other video. Today I'm not keeping my usual series. We're talking about really important topics and metaphysics and magic, and the topic is online trolling. I'm going to address some of those trolls and those comments that I received in my last video. In my last video I spoke about geometry, and the title was meant to be provocative. I stated, math proves you already believe in a higher power. What I'm stating here is that math already proves that you have some sort of faith. That's essentially what this translates into. What I wrote in the description was the following. This is a thought-provoking response, mostly towards the atheist views on God and the universe. This is also my introductory video to my Sacred Geometry series. Polite exchanges are welcome in the comment section. So you can imagine that those polite exchanges look more like this. So very quickly, the YouTube feed populated with trolls, and I'm going to address them one by one. I'm going to recap the other video real quick. I highly suggest you watch it so that you have a little bit of background. Geometry is based on axioms. Axioms are statements that we consider to be true, but they cannot be proven. By definition, those axioms are based on faith. If we look at the definition of faith, there are a couple definitions. One is more related to religion, but the main definition is, according to the Oxford Languages Dictionary, is the complete trust or confidence in someone or something. We have provided this complete trust and confidence into the axioms because without this complete trust and confidence, the entire system will not be able to stand. Why? They cannot be proven. We just assume to be true. We can use the same geometry that we've used to build things for a really long time. The house you live in, the furniture you're using, the device you're sitting on. We've used geometry for a really long time, and we would have not be able to use the system of knowledge without the trust on those 5 simple statements. And I mentioned those statements in my other video. My goal, and I think it's important to state my goal, was not to prove God or not. I don't think we're at a point in history where that can be done confidently. Although we made a lot of progress in the next conversations on sacred geometry, I will start with basic elements of chemistry and where we see sacred geometry in chemistry and where we see it in the rest of reality. And slowly I will start talking about quantum reality, where a lot of interesting phenomena are happening. And in a way, if we look at quantum physics, some of the concepts that we are getting to understand using rational thought, they're actually looking very much as concepts that religions have practiced for millennia. So we're going to get into that because I think it's going to add a whole other layer of complexity to this topic of the existence of God, which we still can prove. The reason this video was made was to allow people to challenge their own views. Because the main point is that if geometry exists, and geometry is based on faith, and geometry allows you to do something useful with your life, then why don't we give the same courtesy that we give mathematicians to people who practice a specific religion or any religion, when religion is also based on axioms or statements that are foundational and they cannot be proven, but that people have faith towards. For instance, the existence of God will be one of the axioms, and a series of axioms as well that make one religion different from the other. For instance, one religion may consider God eternal and completely good. The other religion may consider God eternal, but both good and evil. Or God may be multiple deities. So we have different systems. We have the monotheistic systems that comes to be, polytheistic, pantheistic, all based on how we change those axioms. Similarly, in geometry, whenever we change those axioms, we get from Euclidean geometry to non-Euclidean geometry, which can be useful in other spheres of knowledge. I'm not going to digress into that. But my goal is to allow people to have an open mind, because my previous experience with this type of population is that their um, belief in the non-existence of God is absolute. Uh, a lot of them don't leave any space for the possibility that there may be something. It doesn't have to be God, but there may be some spiritual reality. They think everything is ridiculous. They think spiritualists are ridiculous and such. And all I'm stating is that there is a lot of science that cannot be proven, that especially foundational elements like this. And if we're open-minded towards that, we should be open-minded towards other systems of knowledge, because both math and religion, they're simply areas of knowledge that are trying to make sense of reality. Reality is confusing. We're trying to make sense of it. So let's look at the first comment. And this one, it was a little confusing for me because I did not quite understand what was the point of it. I didn't get whether they're atheists and they were upset about that, or perhaps they believe in something and they were upset about something else. But that's for you to judge. So I'm going to read it. This is from Kartossen. Geometry and math itself are invented, not discovered. I believe I mentioned this. Um, Math is invented. We made up those axioms. We came up with them. Same for religion. Religion is a system. If God exists, we did not invent God, but the system around experiencing God and having a knowledge of it, it's an invented system. Not discovered, correct. Especially those axioms, we did not discover them, because if we did discover them, then we would have some sort of proof that they were correct or real, but we do not have the proof. We make up rules. We make up rules and examine the implications of these rules. True. That was also my point. We made up the axioms and we examined the implications of making up these axioms. By doing that, we created Euclidean geometry. We created what allows us to distinguish what's a three-dimensional figure and those things. Math does seem to model certain aspects of reality. I disagree with that. I believe math models most aspects of reality. Otherwise, we wouldn't use calculations, we wouldn't use geometry to build a table or a building. There would not be engineering. All of that is based on math, all reality, especially things that we build are based on it. But we can show how certain things in geometry do not hold in reality. So let's try, Sherlock. Let's see what this statement implies. Like, for instance, we're about to get smarter here. Reality does not contain circles. And sir or ma'am, how do you come up with that? Reality does not contain circles. A circle, by definition, is a two-dimensional figure. Okay. If you look at a sphere from far away, it may look like a circle, but that's a three-dimensional figure. So in order for you to draw a circle, you would have to have an instrument that crosses your in three-dimensional, quadri-dimensional reality, depending on who you're talking to, and draw in a two-dimensional reality. We don't have that instrument. Therefore, your statement cannot be proven, and your statement cannot be proven because there is potential for other realities to exist, and there is potential for multi-dimensional realities to exist. Therefore, like, we can have a 4D reality or a 5D or a 6D, 7D. We can also have a 2D, a 1D, or a 0D, which would be adimensional, which would be the point in geometry. The point in geometry is considered adimensional. So yes, you cannot draw a circle. Every time you will attempt to it, you will always end up with a three-dimensional figure. You will always end up with a rough surface. You will never be able to draw a perfect circle. If you had the right instrument, you might be able to draw it in a two-dimensional reality, but unfortunately, you're a 3D being in a 3D world. You're not going to be able to cross into a two-dimensional reality. Due to Planck lengths, I wish you explain a little more here, because you're saying a lot of things with certainty, but you don't have anything to back it up. There is not evidence here. There is no such a thing as a perfect circle. Could potentially be making a smart statement by referring to Planck's length, right? Planck's length is a unit of length, and it's an element of quantum mechanics. And we're going to talk a lot more about quantum reality and quantum mechanics and quantum physics, because they explain really interesting phenomena. They show really interesting phenomena that are happening in the world of physics and in the reality around us. And what we see is that actually their explanation looks very metaphysical and not much physical. We're seeing concepts that are appearing in quantum physics. They're very similar to concepts that ancient religions have explored and talked about before. So this will be an interesting field to see develop. So I'm glad you mentioned the Planck length. I'm interpreting your words here because I cannot make any other assessment on those. I believe what you mean exactly is that whenever we talk about space-time and distance, if we're particularly using the Planck length and we're going more into a quantum reality, the more we try to be precise about positions and lengths and things that are very descriptive, reality itself becomes foamy. And the reason why reality itself becomes foamy is that we have we don't essentially have just one reality. We have multiple realities happening at the same time, because quantum physics really explores the possibility of things. It's saying that you're not existence, you're potential. So you have the potential to become whatever you want and change reality in whatever way you want, because all of these potential states of reality are all existing at the same time, and they're all possible. So I believe you're talking about that, but if everything is possible, then it's also possible to draw a perfect circle. So either way, even with using quantum physics and quantum mechanics, you still cannot prove this idea of the circle. Now, if there is something that I'm not aware of, because my expertise in science is actually microbiology, healthcare, I love quantum physics, but never studied it formally. So if there is something that I'm missing in my interpretation of your comment, I suggest you actually review this video and perhaps drop another comment. I'm always interested in a exchange. I just don't like the way you're very confident about making the statements when everything, especially when it comes to quantum physics, everything becomes really relativistic. We got sort of bumpy things that roughly approximate a circle, but nothing is actually a circle. Similarly, we cannot demonstrate that irrational numbers exist. A whole other topic, not false. Irrational numbers, we cannot necessarily prove they exist, but they're very useful because we build entire mathematics on irrational numbers. And it's one of those foundational things that we believe on, and we have a system that we built. Anything in reality can modeled, I assume you're saying, can be modeled as well with a rational number as an irrational one. True. So far you haven't added anything. I appreciate you mentioning the Planck lengths. It prompted a whole conversation about quantum physics, which I'm going to have eventually. It cracked me up. Also, I'm rather annoyed that the video at no point does anything mentioned in the title. Clickbait title is a total lie. Okay, another absolutist comment. You're saying that with certainty. My intention was not to clickbait. My intention, and I wrote it in the comment, was to be thought-provoking. My intention was to state you already have a faith faith-based system called geometry, if you already have a faith system in place, why can you not be open-minded about a second faith system called religion or spirituality? Okay, my intention behind this video was to provoke your minds in order to consider that, well, we may not be absolutely correct about this, and reality may have a lot more to it, and therefore I cannot say things with certainty. So I'm, you know, clickbait, and honestly, when it comes to the internet, a lot of what you see is clickbait. There's a lot of podcasters I listen to, and their titles may be clickbait, and then when I look at the material, I'm like, thank you. I'm actually thankful for that clickbait, because clickbait gets me in, and then I'm staying because the content is good. I reply to that, you're correct when you say geometry and math are invented, just like religion. However, if geometry and math are useful in interpreting reality and working with it, why do you discredit religion for attending the same? To that, there was no answer. I still don't know to this day if Cartosin ever checked the comments, or if Cartosin was an atheist looking to challenge his belief of the non-existence of God. Once again, it's a belief. So atheism is a religion, essentially. Um, and we still don't know where Cartosin stands. So we let it be. I hope Cartosin will eventually watch this video, and perhaps we get more answers. Pure Folds NZ3070 writes, no, it doesn't, but keep grasping for those straws. Amazing. People on the internet truly believe that if they act like trolls and write a comment like that, that they're going to upset somebody. And I learned a long time ago that particularly, and this account is not particularly popular, I've had a social media presence for a while, you can never make anybody happy. There's always going to be somebody disagreeing with it. It's part of the price that you pay for being out there with your views, or your personality, or your lifestyle. Somebody is going to disagree, and somebody is going to be highly critical of you. What makes the difference is how we react to it. And me personally, I'm just making this video for fun, and I'm having fun reading these comments, because I think a lot of this behavior on the internet is profoundly ridiculous. People have their point of views, and more often than not, they will not challenge your point of views. You can provide solid evidence that the sky is blue, but if the previous belief was that the sky is green, they will keep saying the sky is green. That's why when it comes to politics, having somebody who can shift their thought politically is actually very hard. Most people have thoughts that are already made and set in place, and they're hard to challenge. So I invite different point of views, because me personally, I strive to be more open-minded, so that I can allow myself to grow. Because to me, my point in life is to grow continuously and continuing to obtain knowledge. I wrote, because once again, I like to be thought-provoking, am I supposed to just believe your statement without you providing any proof of your claim? And Pure Falls reply, buddy, you're the one making the claim. Yeah, true. That argument, quote unquote, commits the fallacy of begging the question. The argument commits the fallacy of begging the question. It's a circular statement that doesn't add anything other than an extra line that I have to read. So thank you for wasting my time. It assumes that conclusion, that belief in a higher power is embedded in mathematical reasoning without providing any proof. No, I haven't said that. I stated that math, and particularly geometry, is based on faith. And my thought-provoking question was, if math is based on faith, why can we not be open-minded towards religion or spirituality? Plus, mathematics is a formal system built on axioms, logic, and abstraction. Absolutely true. It does not presuppose metaphysical beliefs. Nobody has ever said that, at least not yet, nor does it require one. It doesn't, but what we know about math and geometry historically is that it was considered sacred by the Sumerians, by the Egyptians, by the Greeks. Within the Greek philosophical system, we had the Pythagoreans, who actually considered geometry sacred, highly sacred. There, there were groups within Christianity that consider geometry sacred. Esoteric school of thoughts, um, esoteric schools across the Middle Ages and the Renaissance believed geometry was sacred. Um, Freemasonry and a lot of neo-religions consider geometry to be sacred. So although you may say it doesn't require one, it does not presuppose metaphysical belief, in reality, there is a fraction of the population who believes metaphysics and math are embedded. And that's why I have a whole series on sacred geometry, and now we see those patterns of sacred geometry within nature and within chemistry and molecules and other form. Because although I don't want to suggest that we live in a smart design, I think that's an ancient idea that's not necessarily what I ascribe to. I want to be thought provoking once again, and I want to identify why we have patterns in reality that repeat and repeat and repeat. And to many people, this is a proof or one of the elements that may lead to a proof of the existence of God. I'm not going to discredit it, particularly when I have a spiritual channel. I'm going to talk about it, what I know about it. I'm going to do my research, and I'm going to have this topic out. Which says mathematics does not presuppose metaphysical belief, nor does it require one. In other words, you're full of it. Thank you. And it's great you're being called out in your own comment section. So far, we had one person say that I was clickbaiting and adding a bunch of nonsense, and you're saying I'm being called out. I'm only seeing comments from two people. So, and I mentioned in my reply to him that there was a coordinated attack. I was exaggerating and being a little dramatic. Coordinated attack from three individuals. So I don't see the third individual at this point. I assume this person either deleted their account or perhaps deleted their comment because it's no longer here. People are firm in their beliefs. Those beliefs cannot be challenged. If people believe the sky is green, you can provide all the evidence you like about the sky being blue, and they will still say the sky looks green to them. As humans, we categorize things to make sense of them so that we can study them. So we have systems in place to do that. Religion is one of them because we have questions such as where does life come from? What happens after life ends? And is there something better or something higher than our own intelligence? So religions attempts to answer those questions. Mathematics and a lot of the sciences attempt to answer very similar questions too. And they're all systems that are studying reality. Here, I'm doing something that I suggest you don't do on the internet, and I'm actively working on avoiding. And one thing is that I can put out a video or material that is the result of me being really high energy and really interested in one topic. And no matter what, no matter how good my research is and how well I'm presenting their argument, there will always be somebody trying to make it lesser and take it down and make it worse. They're also lowering your vibration. So by me answering this way, I'm essentially lowering my vibration to their level. And my goal is to keep the vibration high, because if my vibration is high, I manifest things and things are really good. I've had a system in place that has worked with methods that you've seen before that I've described. And therefore, they work so far. I have a system in place. I don't care if somebody believes that they're not real and they may think um, making things up. They work for me. They work for a lot of people. I'm within metaphysical circles, and a lot of us use the same methods. And therefore, it doesn't matter. I'm still going to keep an open minded to people saying otherwise, but otherwise, it doesn't matter what other people say. So it stinks, but I did not order the word salad. So essentially, when people insult like that, you may have an argument build up, but they're exiting by saying they're insulting what you wrote. It's a word salad, and that allows them to exit the scene without having to answer anything. And that's honestly really weak. Um, but I see a lot of people do that on the internet, and I wish people actually, especially when there's strong statements like this, I wish they actually elaborated and put work into that. And I wrote, typical example of reductio ad absurdum fallacy, try again. And if you'd like to know what that is, I invite you to look it up. Hope Pure Folds looks it up. I think he did, based on the other comments. I added another comment where I stated, I'll use simpler terms for you to comprehend. I can also resort to emojis or make drawings if that makes it easier for you. And once again, that's me going to that level, me lowering my vibration. That needs to be avoided in the future. Pure Folds here. I didn't even see your other reply. Yikes, looks like someone got triggered. And I would say, really, I want to think about this. Did I truly get triggered? And I think one of the things that potentially triggers me is the fact that um, people never challenge their own beliefs, and people keep closed minds. And a closed mind, to me, is a sign of ignorance, and ignorance triggers me. So that may be it. When I'm trying to push out, well, you have a strong conviction here, make sure that you're heard and write what this is about and provide all of your elements. And people just result, they just love to use insults rather than using logic to defend their own arguments. So I think that might be a source of triggering. I don't know if I truly believe it, but it's something that I've considered and looked into. Thanks for your reductio ad absurdum fallacy, he says. This will now live rent-free in my head. Why? Because he probably looked it up, and I hope he understood the meaning of that. So you wrote one comment seated for 1 minute and wrote another since you wanted my attention so bad. Sad. I don't know you. I mean, why would I want your attention so bad? You're not a person of interest. Why would I seek your attention? If anything, one thing that I really appreciate with these comments and the back and forth is the fact that the more people comment, the more they open the video, the more these people reaches people who perhaps may use it and it may be helpful for them. So I'm really thankful to the trolls because the trolls allow it to reach more people. The more views, the more comments, the more interaction there is, the more this video may reach the right people, and who knows, it may make the difference in somebody's life. So thank you, trolls. You're doing a service and you don't even realize that. Somebody else, double O silver, they say math is metaphysical. You have no idea what you're talking about. If you want to make up things, go ahead, but don't spread your nonsense. And beautiful, I'm not saying you're wrong. However, this is another strong statement. Math is metaphysical. And, maybe we should not provide pure folds with that knowledge because it would be useless. This person is clearly here just to argue. But I wish, since you provided a point, you could potentially add another comment where you actually explain why math is metaphysical. Because this is supposed to start a conversation, and this is not supposed to be based on statements that are absolutist. I would like to have some explanation. So If you're game and you have time for it, and there's something that you want to write, welcome that. And pure false reply. How does me saying no make up anything? How does me saying no make up anything? Please enlighten me, because in English this statement does not make sense, and therefore it's a very sad way. And I understand why Double O Silver did not reply to him, because there's nothing to reply to, because that's a nonsensical sentence after a nonsensical comment. Um, this person put one, two, three, four nonsensical comments. This concludes my reaction video. Hang tight, because I'm working on the Sacred Geometry series, as I mentioned many times, and I would like my channel to be more of a conversation um, about things that I practice and interest me more about my authentic self. So I will really strive to bring these topics in. Um, this is a little bit different than what we usually do, but I think it's entertaining. So thank you. If you're watching, thank you for entertaining with me. I hope you are able to like, comment, subscribe,